Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about how I stay organized as a security analyst and part-time YouTuber. So almost everyone watching this video is most likely going to be juggling many different things, whether it's your full-time job, part-time job, school, certifications, learning new skills, whether they're in cybersecurity or not, hobbies, friends, family, everything that life just throws at you on a regular basis. There's a lot to do and it always feels like you don't have enough time, which just really makes getting one thing done when you're thinking about everything else so much harder. So I wanted to share some of the things that I use to stay organized on a regular basis. So starting off this list with the first item, and that is creating a second brain. So I know that sounds really weird, but basically a second brain is where you can dump all of your ideas, all the random thoughts that you get throughout the day, a quote or part of a book that is just floating around in your head waiting for you to write it down. And if you guys watch Ali Abdaal, also a YouTuber, he creates productivity videos, and he was actually one of the people who inspired me to do this based on a book that he read called Building a Second Brain, because every day your brain is thinking of many different things, and there's some statistic that says majority of those thoughts are recurring, and once you get those thoughts down on paper or electronically, which is preferable for me, I basically have a brain dump of every interesting thought that I've had throughout the day, or something that's just nagging me in the back of my head that doesn't fit on my to-do list but also doesn't fit into my journaling. I put it into my second brain, which is again just a random document. And essentially when you're in a creative state and you're able to get back to those creative interesting thoughts that you had within your second brain, you can always go back and review all the interesting ideas and topics and thoughts that you may have had, maybe creative ways to study for things, or maybe a cybersecurity vulnerability that you've been meaning to look into but just haven't. You can get a lot of different ideas from your second brain, and just being able to use that to keep your mind organized. And once you write it down, it really is just like a heavy weight off your brain. All right, the next topic on this list is managing your inbox. So I think overall I've had a love-hate relationship with email, but that is also because I always try to keep my email at zero, aka zero unread messages. And I did want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Shortwave. Shortwave is a free app that integrates with any Gmail account, and it makes managing your emails and your inbox so much more intuitive and clutter-free. It's available on desktop, iOS, and Android, and helps organize your inbox into more manageable categories rather than the infinite scroll of email that you currently have sitting in your mailbox. Emails and threads on Shortwave are automatically categorized and bundled together to help you keep organized by default. You can of course customize things yourself by dragging and dropping, and once you're done reviewing an email thread, you can literally check it off as done and move it to a separate section on Shortwave, so you don't have to constantly look at the same emails that you've already completed. And you can also pin important emails at the top of your inbox or snooze them for a later date for Shortwave to remind you of when to get back to someone or when to check up on an email thread. What I really love about Shortwave is how it really just makes your inbox more so like a messaging plus to-do list all together in one, because it really just keeps you so much more organized compared to having to scroll through and look at old emails. Shortwave just saves you so much time and helps you focus on the things in your inbox that really matter. So if you're interested in checking out Shortwave, you can check out the link below to use your app on desktop or mobile devices. Again, it is completely free to use. Thank you so much to Shortwave for sponsoring, and let's get back to the video. Number 3 on this list is probably the one that you always hear about, and that is having a to-do list. So hear me out. Some of you might be thinking, oh yes, I love my to-do list. And probably the bigger majority of you guys are thinking, no thanks, no to-do list for me. And I completely understand. I did not get into making to-do lists until I was in college, because all the to-do lists I'd followed in the past had just never worked out for me. I always found the fanciest to-do list. I used to have a Trello board. I used to have a bunch of apps that I used for different classes in school, and I never kept up with them until I just started to follow my own flow. Nowadays, my to-do list is straight up a doc, and I just write anything that I need to do down, and it really is just my backlog of things that I need to do. I used to try so hard to make it fancy for what was upcoming, what I was currently focusing on, and then what was delayed or waiting on other people. Nowadays, my to-do list is just to do or it is done. There's no between. It's either a 0 or a 1. And that honestly has been the best way for my brain to process my to-do list, because with all the previous steps, if you ever used a Kanban board before, a Kanban board might be good for project management and keeping track of larger scale projects. But if it's just one to do, you shouldn't have to drag it through 5 different steps just to get it done. And in terms of mental capacity, it's way easier to just say this is not done and then this is done. And for things that sit on my to-do list longer, I just keep them at the top, and when I get to them, I'll get to them, especially if they don't have a deadline, like my more pressing to-dos that I need to do for this day or this week or even this month. So at the end of the year, I literally have a list of everything I've done, because if I don't have something on my to-do list and it's not marked with a certain time, then I won't do it. So that's just the system that I've set up for myself to function better. And I'm sure not everyone is going to want a hour by hour to-do list, but it personally works for me. And it's all about creating that habit loop in your head to want to check things off your to-do list. And it kind of gamifies your to-do list to make you so that you're excited to get things done. Not just that you have to do things, but you want to do things. But of course, I'm not saying everything on my to-do list is something I want to and would love to do. So if you're someone who is intimidated by a to-do list, just make a really easy, quick one on Google Docs or any place that you take notes, and just start writing things down that you need to do for the day. And after you finish them, just make it a point to check things off and see where you go from there. You'll be surprised after doing this for a few days and a few weeks how much you get used to it and how integral of a part of your daily routine it becomes. Our next thing on this list is keeping a habit tracker. So my habit tracker is also very basic. I used to see a bunch of fancy ones, again, on Notion templates and things like that, where someone would show me their daily habit tracker where they have like a daily checklist of things they need to do. And personally, those things look very fancy and really nice. If I was a bullet journaling person, I would love that. But I'm someone who likes to see everything on one page. So typically for my habit tracker, I really just have a simple spreadsheet where I lay out the days of the week and then the weeks of the year. And it's essentially a 7x52 spreadsheet of each of my habit trackers that I keep on one page. And every time I finish them off, I just check off the box. And in terms of habit tracking, I let myself have 2 free days in a week. So on a weekly basis, I follow my habits 5 days out of the 7 days of the week. And the habits that I keep track of are exercising or getting some kind of movement in, learning something new, meditation or breath work. It doesn't have to be, 30 minutes. I just do a 5-minute meditation, and that is plenty enough. It's all about keeping the habit itself and not about how long you spend sitting down and meditating, by the way. The 4th thing is doing something new, trying a new hobby, anything that I wouldn't typically do on a normal basis, just to add some spice into my daily routine. And the last one has to do with YouTube, and I've only been doing it for the last few weeks. So you can kind of see by the chart when I started these habits. And it's really just a nice way to keep myself grounded on a daily basis, because with work, friends, family, YouTube, which is a huge part of my personal time outside of my 9 to 5, I really had to incorporate this habit tracker into my life. Otherwise, none of these things would ever get done. Things like exercise, mental health, learning new things, those are all things I prioritize on a regular basis, and I don't want those to slip just because the rest of the areas of my life get busier. And nowadays my habit tracker also feels kind of gamified to me, because I can see all the days that I have completed my habits. I can see the ones I haven't, but again, I let myself skip 2 days for each habit a week, so it's not too bad, especially when you need to give yourself a break or a day off. But again, checking things off my habit tracker on a daily basis also gives me a little dopamine kick. So I just recommend it because it makes you feel like you're doing something for yourself, which you are. And it's just nice to be able to look back on it and see how far you've come. And if you're someone who never thought you could follow a habit, which was me with meditation, it's much easier when you can actually see the progress that you've made. And it encourages you not to give up, because you've already come so far and you've already done it for 2, 3, 6 months. So I definitely recommend doing habit tracking if you don't already. And of course, make it as seamless and easy as possible. For me, it's literally just checking off a cell in a spreadsheet. All right, next thing on this list is note-taking and journaling. So note-taking, of course, is something that I'm sure everyone does who's studying for a certification, who's currently in school, who is doing any kind of studying for finding new skills or new tools that you're learning for cybersecurity, or even just a hobby if you're someone who is looking at other areas in tech that you might be interested in. For example, coding in Python or JavaScript, or just scripting in general. I'm sure many of you guys are already note takers, and there are lots of different note-taking apps out there. As long as you have a good note-taking app that you actually enjoy using, that's the most helpful. I'm very basic, so I typically go towards the note-taking apps that are very easy to use. I don't have to click through multiple different pages I can easily search through things. Things are integrated. As long as it has those features, then I'm good to go. But when it comes to journaling, I do weekly journaling twice a week, and then I also do daily journaling. So I know that sounds very excessive, and believe me, I had never previously journaled before, besides since COVID started, I would say. Actually, I started my weekly journals when I started my first full-time job out of college, because I felt very lost. And it's just that time after college where I felt like I needed somewhere to write down my thoughts. So I started weekly journaling at that point, and then I also started weekend journaling. Weekly journaling is Monday through Friday. I write down my thoughts for the week. I give the week a rating 1 out of 10. And then weekend journaling, same thing, but it is just for the weekend, typically Friday night through Sunday night, and do the same thing, write how my weekend went, anything that was significant, and then I also give the weekend a rating. This helps me because then I can see at a high level how I'm feeling week by week, weekend by weekend, and I can look back and see, oh, if I have too many very low week ratings and very high weekend ratings, then something must be wrong at work, because I'm obviously not feeling the best after I finish my work week. And for daily journaling, this is something I've only started earlier this year, and I always thought this was going to be very tedious. It was something I've always wanted to do, even though I thought it was very tedious. And in the beginning of this year, I was watching another YouTuber, Stefan, and basically in one of their videos, they showed their daily journal, and it just looked so easy to do. I believe it was also on Notion, but I just do mine on a spreadsheet. But to me, it's kind of the same thing. And essentially, I'll just have a different row for every day. And in the beginning of the day, I'll write my affirmations. This is the one that really kicked it off for me, because I used to think daily journaling was at the end of the day. But now when I can do daily affirmations, it starts off my day on a positive note, because I'm already writing good things to you know, positively influence my mind. And then at the end of the day, I'll write down how my day went. I'll write down 3 things I'm grateful for. Usually it's more than 3 things, but at least 3 things I'm grateful for. And then a rating for the day. This also gives me a more detailed view of how I feel throughout the week. So I also know when my bad days are, when my good days are. And now that I've gotten so used to documenting my thoughts and things down on a journal, it doesn't take me like the 20-30 minutes it used to take me to write down a journal entry. Nowadays, it takes me maybe a minute to come up with affirmations, because it's just whatever I'm thinking of. For example, in the morning, if I'm worried about a big presentation, then I'll write as my affirmation, I'm going to have a great presentation today. I'm going to have a great meeting. Work is going to be amazing. And those are the affirmations that I'm going to start my day with. So it really is just whatever is applicable to that day. I'm not just going to sit down and come up with random ones that don't apply. Alright, this video has become very, very long, and I didn't expect it to be, but the last thing is just keeping up with your calendar. My calendar and my to-do list are just 2 parts of the same whole. So whatever is not on my to-do list, I'll put on my calendar. And both of those things really just work hand in hand for me to get my stuff done, know when my appointments are, know when my meetings are, and everything in between. So as you can see after watching this entire video, if you did, thank you, I appreciate you. But basically, I like to write everything down. I do not trust my brain to keep these things in my short-term memory, so I write them down, and it just makes life so much easier when you don't have random thoughts floating around, random reminders in the back of your head, hoping that you don't forget them. And so that's it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Be sure to check out Shortwave as well, linked in the description below, to much more efficiently manage your inbox and your emails. I post videos every Wednesdays and Sundays at 12 p.m. and hopefully I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!